Hello friends, today we will introduce ourselves to the non-communicable disease under the umbrella of community medicine. Master Dr. Vivek Vakchare from the Department of Community Medicine. Today we will going to consider the epidemiology of non-communicable diseases, the risk factors in non-communicable diseases, preventive strategies and case taking in community medicine for non-communicable diseases. Now, epidemiology of non-communicable disease. As you know, currently we have transitioned from communicable diseases being the most important public health problem to non-communicable diseases being the most important public health problem, except the pandemics. The pandemics take preference over all the things, but still, before the pandemics, it was the slowly non-communicable disease were becoming a major factor of death, mortality, morbidity, and that is why they were now being given increased focus, especially in the Western countries where they were being given primary focus for prevention or public health basically. Now, what are the non-communicable diseases? Non-communicable diseases are impairments or all deviation from the normals which have one or more following characteristics. It should be permanent. Non-communicable disease is generally not temporary. It should be permanent, long duration and generally slow progression. Non-reversible pathological alteration are present. Leave residual disability, requires rehabilitation, long-term supervision, lifestyle alteration. Okay, for the sake of definition, these are correct, but these are not watertight compartments. We have seen the people reversing, it's not correct term reversing, managing diabetes mellitus. So yeah, diabetes mellitus, if one is a patient, that is permanent, but with the lifetime modification, with proper management, one can be as normal as possible, as healthy as possible. The example is of a great bowler Wasim Akram from Pakistan. He was a diabetic, but he played for his country for so many years, breaking so many records. So it's not that if a person has diabetes or hypertension, he is impaired or he is disabled. Yeah, that person can live a healthy life with proper lifestyle modification and management. But yes, the changes are permanent. So the requirement for active management will be always there by either by lifestyle modification or by either by drugs. It will be always there. Non-communicable diseases are chronic, also known as chronic disease, and these are not communicable. Basically, not communicable. That is the self-explanatory term. These are not transmitted, say like COVID-19. It's not transmitted from one person to other. There are four main types of non-communicable diseases: cardiovascular diseases, cancers, chronic respiratory diseases, and diabetes mellitus. Now, this is a list of non-communicable diseases. You can see mental retardation, schizophrenia means these are the mental illnesses. These are also considered under it. Arthritis is there, peptic ulcers are there. So these are some of the common non-communicable diseases. The list is much more extensive. These are some more common non-communicable diseases. NCDs kill more than or nearly 4 crore people each year. That is a huge number of people, and almost 75% of these are low to middle income countries in middle income. See, when the trend of NCD started, when the NCD started to get more focus, as we started to develop better antibiotics, better care for communicable diseases, we started to understand how communicable are transmitted and how to prevent them. As our knowledge and know-how increased in them, then our focus slowly shifted to non-communicable disease. Initially, what was thought? Non-communicable diseases are the diseases of the rich. So diabetes, hypertension, people used to think that okay, as the poor are suffering with the TB, leprosy, the rich are given the scourge of non-communicable disease. But if today you see the picture, uh, it is seen that low income countries and people in the low economic section are even more affected than the high income countries and people living in the upper strata. Why this is the case, we'll discuss later. 1.6 crore of NCDs are premature, that is before 70. Average age is considered about 72. So premature deaths occur in 1.6 crore people. These are the worldwide NCD mortality. Of all the reasons of developing NCDs, developing complication of NCDs, and maybe death due to NCDs, these four are the most important reason that increase the amount of risk of dying due to NCDs. Tobacco use, physical inactivity, harmful use of alcohol, that is excessive alcohol, and unhealthy diets. Regarding this term, for Indians, I would say, I am not saying that this is official statement again, but I would say use of alcohol basically. There is no such thing as moderate or this use of alcohol. Alcohol is risky, at least for Indian climate and all these things. Now, top 10 causes of death in the world. You will see that lower respiratory tract infections, then diarrheal disease, tuberculosis. These are the some of the entries of communicable disease. Rest all are, these are non-communicable diseases, and of course this road injuries. So these are the top. Ischemic heart diseases are the most important cause of death globally. Probability of dying due to NCDs, if you see, now India is one of the hotspot for NCD related deaths. So we have come long way. When the communicable disease were our major priority, from that we have come long way to become affected by both NCDs and communicable disease. But again I am saying that these all figures are pre and COVID era. During the COVID eras, everything took backseat, and COVID is the single most important cause of death, and I won't say cause of death, but cause of public alarm basically. So these things are totally different now, for at least the for the period of COVID. Economic impact. Economic loss due to heart disease, stroke and diabetes. If you can see, it is huge. It's more than 200 billions for India. And similarly for China, it is even more. Now, what are the risk factors? This was the, now we will consider what are the risk factors of non-communicable diseases. Basically, non-communicable diseases are also called as lifestyle disease. What happens? There is a change in the socio-economic, cultural and political environment. Previously, few decades back, what was the India, and not even India, many of the developing nations, what were they? They were primarily agrarian societies where most of the people had to do their manual labor. Very few people had white collar jobs as such, and economy was very poor. So nutrition was hampered. People were not having excess calories. Even I heard from the 2-3 generation back that even chapati was considered luxury. It was not consumed daily or as such. Rice was consumed luxury in many parts. If it is not in coastal areas, if it is not present in the rice producing areas, the plains or Deccan Plateau, most of the people were only eating jowar. So food habits were different. Smoking was very rare, and basically people did not have money and time to spend on the luxuries of life. Then slowly economic development happened, globalization happened. As we know, we become much closer than we ever were. Children who used to work for even those people going to school, they used to work in the family lands, and then means they used to balance that work and education. Nowadays children, most of them, they will sit on the computer games, mobiles, laptops. They will spend most of the times there. So different scenario happen. And secondly, when India become free or independence, that time average life expectancy was nearly 32 or 33, and now it is nearly reaching 70. So that is also a huge gap now. People were dying young due to many infectious diseases, wars, and famines. Now we have controlled famines, there is a food surplus, and secondly we have controlled we have increased our life expectancy. So all these have contributed to unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, excessive use of tobacco, alcohol. Secondly, increased life expectancy. So average age of the patients have also increased, and this has all led to intermediate risk factors like raised blood pressure, raised blood glucose level, abnormal blood lipids, overweight and obesity. See, this is very huge problem in India. Even if a person is not obese, it is considered, here I have not written that, or it's this table does not mention that, but central obesity is also single important factor, is also individually important factor. It does not, it should not come under plain umbrella of obesity. What is central obesity? Basically fat deposition around the abdominal area. How it is calculated? It is calculated by waist to hip ratio. Now if you consider Indian male, many people have normal weight for their height, their BMI will be normal, but still they will have some pot belly, they will have central obesity. You can see any, I will actually say that if you generally watch any person around 40 or above 40 in India, even if that person looks apparently normal, he will have some form of pot belly. Flat abdomen is very rare in India, and even rarer among women of India. So we have tendency of this obesity, overweight, or central obesity. And if we do this any screening test, we will find out many people don't know exactly their blood pressure is raised, but they don't know about it until unless they come up accidentally or confront it accidentally. Similar condition is about raised blood pressure, blood glucose level, and blood lipids. All these cause the diseases known as heart diseases, stroke, cancer, chronic respiratory diseases, diabetes, hypertension. All these are caused due to intermediate risk factors. So remember, underlying socio-economic, political cultures and determinants change the nature or lifestyle of the people, that leads to common modifiable risk factors like unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, tobacco use, and also some non-modifiable risk factors as age and heredity. So as average age is increased, so this risk factor also increase. It leads to intermediate risk factors of raised blood pressure, blood glucose level, abnormal lipids, overweight, and this results in the chronic diseases. When if you get a long question on NCT, if you draw such figures, it will make a good impression. It will help you secure more marks. Always risk factors are divided into modifiable and non-modifiable. As the name suggests, the risk factor on which you can act or which you can change is are called as modifiable, and which you cannot act, these are inevitable. These are known as non-modifiable. So this is the list. As again discussed, smoking, pressure, serum, then lipid profile, then altered lipid profile, diabetes, or raised blood glucose level, lifestyle change, stress, and alcohol abuse. All these are important modifiable risk factors. And non-modifiable risk factors are age, gender, family history, genetic risk factor, personality, and race. As we discussed, these are the 4 most important risk factors, and you can see how much death or how much impact of these individual risk factors is present in the community. So these are very important figures to understand. Metabolic or physiological risk factors. As we discussed, these can be called as intermediate risk factors. Basically, it's that CSD or ischemic heart disease does not develop in a sudden bloom. A person is suppose obese or has a very poor lifestyle, stress is increased. So overnight he will not develop, he or she will not develop a ischemic heart disease. So there will be intermediate steps. These intermediate risk factors are raised blood pressure, overweight or obesity, hyperglycemia, that is raised blood glucose level, and hyperlipidemia. Why these are important to study? Because if you can monitor these, if you can screen for these, then we can catch them early. We can try for primary or at least early secondary prevention. Primary prevention is prevention before the development of disease, and secondary prevention is early detection and prompt management. So actually not the, I won't say if the person has a raised blood pressure or if the person is overweight, and if we just start managing that, we can actually call it primary prevention. It will be early secondary prevention. Basically, we want to diagnose early and treat promptly. All these metabolic risk factors globally important is elevated blood pressure. It can attribute 18% of global deaths, followed by obesity and raised blood glucose level. The worrying trend is that overweight among children is exponentially increasing. So India is a country where undernourishment, malnutrition, kwashiorkor, marasmus, these are very common. So we have a huge number of children, huge proportion of children who are suffering with underweight or protein energy malnutrition, and simultaneously we have huge number of children who are obese and overweight also. So as a public health perspective, we are now flanked from both sides. Basically, if a gamer term, flanked from both sides. So this is a very worrying scenario. How we can prevent and control the NCDs? This is a beat NCDs global initiative to beat NCDs logo. Okay. Now, for understanding how these NCDs work, what are the risk factors, and then for developing the strategies to manage them, various community trials have taken place. Farmingham study, Stanford 3 community study, North Kerala projects, multiple risk factor intervention trial. I won't go in detail of these all, but I would like to say that Farmingham study is a single important trial, and which was very long running continuous trial. It has cleared or made us increase our knowledge regarding risk factors and NCDs, very enriched our knowledge. This is a very important study. This can come as a short answer question for 2 marks, or this can be asked in your MCQ. So for that sake I have included these things. Prevention is multi-tier approach: primordial prevention, primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. Now see the primordial prevention. Primordial prevention is actually a utopian prevention, as far as I think. It is a prevention of a development of risk factors. So before even risk factors, like previously we were considering modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors develop, we have to intervene and stop the development of risk factors. Now this can come as a short note as such, or as part of a long question, where you have to generally asked to discuss along with the example. And for primordial prevention, giving example, I think best approach is to give NCDs example for how you can apply primordial prevention for non-communicable diseases basically. So there are two very good examples. First is actually this is not the case, but very rare you can find this. But if you find a pocket of a village or tribal area which is actually not well connected, well communicated to the modern society, so the people living there are sort of isolated. So आप imagine करो ऐसा कुछ tribal area है जो जिनका communication to the modern world is very limited, very low. So what will be there the case that most of the people living in there will be living in the traditional ways. So they will be working hard for 8 to 10 hours a day. Their foods, the consumption of food will be what is locally grown. Now if you can see, basmati rice is grown in Punjab and every day we can enjoy it in the Sangli itself, or vice versa. So what I am saying that transportation of food is low, so they will consume what is locally grown, and mostly they will consume millets. So their food habits will be such that the development of risk of developing NCDs is low. So I'm not saying that keep them isolated. That is not primordial prevention. So even if slowly the roads develop, the people start more communicating with modern society, what as a public health specialist we can do? We can stress on them for preserving their classical food habits which are good, adding the food habits which are actually better for them, and maintaining the healthy lifestyle. So even if they don't if they start earning good amount of money and they don't need to work in fields for 10 hours, at least they can start exercising. So we want to modify such things there. We want to continue their good habits, and we want to bring out good modifications so that the development of risk factors will never occur. I won't say never, but even if it occurs, it will be limited. So this is a one example of primary prevention. Second example is among kids. So if we start them early, we can prevent development of modified risk factors. So from early age, we won't develop unhealthy lifestyle, food consumption habits. We will stress on developing active lifestyle among children, and this will ensure that the risk of developing risk factors. Are you getting my point? Don't get confused. So chance of developing risk factors reduces. Okay. So this is the primary prevention. Then we'll consider primary prevention. Primary prevention has a two-pronged approach: population strategy and high risk strategy. So what is population strategy? Population strategy is behavioral change communication, generally using mass media. It's not always a mass media, but behavioral change communication is very important. So what are the important message we want to give? We want to bring dietary changes, we want to increase the physical activity, reduction of stress, smoking, introduce the concept of self-care. Okay, these are the population strategies. And what is high risk? It is identifying people with high risk. The people who are obese, people have the family history. Similarly, people have stressful jobs. So all these people are identified, and they are routinely screened. The lifestyle modification are developed before actually developing of the diseases. So this is the high risk approach. Now secondary prevention is, first screening is very important for secondary prevention. It may be high risk screening or mass screening. Whatever is there, it's very important to detect the cases early before the development of major complications, and starting appropriate, acceptable, low cost treatment along with regular follow up is very important for secondary prevention. Now there are widespread misunderstanding. Actually, whenever we are taking a lecture session, these things are not considered, because I think the most important use of this session should be for case taking, and in the case taking, your misconception should be clear so that you can clear the misconception of the patient you are looking. So that is why we are discussing these things. So in the reverse order, we discussed the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding number 10 is chronic disease affect high income countries, and in reality nearly 80% of the deaths are in the low and middle income countries. As we discussed, ये तो अमीरों की बीमारी है या फिर this is a problem of the developed nation? No, this is actually a problem of developing nations, and this is a problem of every income people. So many people believe that low to middle income countries should control infectious disease before tackle chronic disease. But in reality, now problem is that India is forefront in the TB also, and India is forefront in the diabetes also, and both of them very are like best friends. People with diabetes are very prone to TB. So again those diseases also go in hand in hand. So now our public health challenge is tackling both the infectious diseases as well as the chronic diseases. Again, as we discussed, people think that chronic disease mainly affect rich people. So people think chronic disease occur in rich countries. People think poor countries are more to do with infectious diseases, and people think rich people are getting affected. It is a scourge of God over the rich. No, this is not the case. Actually, now to be frankly speaking, what are the needs to control the what are the lifestyle changes needed to be required? First lifestyle changes is you have to exercise daily. For exercise daily, people try to go to gym, people try to go to walkers, use walkers or treadmills. These people have better chance of doing regular exercise. On the opposite end, if you are walking on the roads or if you are cycling on the roads, many times there is rain or many other issues are there. There was a national lockdown for nearly many weeks or months. So during that period, the people who are from low socioeconomic strata and depending on walking or public places for exercise, those were hampered, or those are easily hampered. But the person who is rich, who can afford a treadmill, has a gym in set up in his own house, what he will do, he will start working out daily in this house. So similarly, if you consider good healthy food, what is healthy food? Fruits are the very expensive thing. Dry fruits, these are very expensive things. So as I always give example, a vada pav costs 10 rupees, but if you want to eat any fruit, you will have to shell out 50 to 70 rupees for same amount of energy. It's not possible. It's expensive for poor people. So actually now diet and lifestyle, and most important thing is time. If you are living in Mumbai, you will understand people who are rich, these are living in South Bombay, working in South Bombay. People who are poor, living in the fringes of Mumbai, I will say, Panvel and even this all other things. I am not well versed, but they will travel every day 2 hours in the locals for going to the job and 2 hours while coming. When they will have time? So rich people have time. So now the tables have turned. The non-communicable diseases are the diseases which affect more among poor and elderly. And lastly, rich people can be screened early. They will have regular medical checkups. They will have proper management, and they can afford every kind of medical care. So I am not saying that rich people will not have this disease, but again, this is a misunderstanding. Again, chronic diseases are often viewed affecting old people, and but actually if we see, and specifically countries like India, young people are more affected. Nowadays it is very common to see development of diabetes or initiation of diabetes as early as the second or third decade of life. In Western countries this is very rare. In Western countries it is a disease of 6 decade, but in India nearly most of the diabetic are diabetic before 45 and 50. Then these diseases are affecting primarily men, but these diseases actually are equally affecting men and women, especially after menopause. After the age of 45, the disease equally affect men and women. Before that, women have some natural protection against the disease. But nowadays, new issues are happening that pregnancy induced or raise elevated blood pressure and elevated blood sugar level during pregnancies are becoming more and more common. Again, this is a very important issue, because nowadays during the pregnancy, women tend to be more sedentary, consuming, I think, responsible diet, excessive diet, or wrong way of diet. So these are all adding to the things. Many people believe that individuals develop chronic disease as a result of unhealthy lifestyle and have no one to blame but themselves. The truth is there is a issue, as we discussed. The middle class people or low middle class people or even poor people, they don't have choice. They don't have luxury of time. They don't have luxury of having access to the means of exercise. They don't have luxury of consuming the very expensive but healthy food. So this is not exactly always the issue. Then secondly, the in children specifically, their diet is controlled. Diet, exposure to smoking, all is due to the adults. So it is misunderstanding that okay, you have got NCD, so it's your fault only. That doesn't mean that it's not that one cannot do anything. One has to find the way in constraint of their socio-economic background, and that is why as a doctors you should be able to guide them, and that is why you should understand what is the basic how to advise the NCD patient. And then once happened, it is final. अभी कुछ नहीं कर सकते, डायबिटीज हो गया, NCD हो गया, कुछ नहीं हो सकता अभी, क्या मरना तो है, तो खा के मरेंगे. तो it's not that the case. The risk factors can be prevented, disease can be handled, managed properly. Even a person may not need a pharmacological management at all if there is a proper management of the disease. So this is also a misunderstanding. Again, people believe that managing NCDs is too expensive, and it is best left to the natural causes. No, it is not the case. Now government is actively helping the people. Many drugs are available, supplies available, free or cheap of cost. And again, lifestyle modifications are not at all expensive if you know what are the constraints and how you can go beyond it. So as we discussed, if there is a severe rain or lockdown and you can't afford your gym or treadmill, what you can do? You can do yogas in your house. So there is always a way, but you have to find the way, and you have to be as a doctor, you have to guide the people to find the way. Then there are half truths. My grandfather smoked and was overweight, and he lived to 96. So there will be always smokers who will never have any NCDs. There will be always obese people who will never develop NCDs and live a long life. But when you consider as a group, as a cohort, there is always risk. That is why we don't call them definitive factors, we call them risk factors. So it is there that okay, a person who drives every day, he drives rashly, every day he drives with the speed of 100 and on the road with 50 speed limit, and he may never have accident, but that doesn't mean everybody should try to copy him. There is always a chance or risk of developing accident. So remember, this is a half truth, and everyone has to die of something. Death is inevitable, so death cannot be prevented forever. Yes, this is truth, everyone has to die, but in what way you have to die, when you have to die, these all depends on the habits and your many other things. So living with diabetic medications, living on insulin for up to age of 75, is it better, or living an healthy lifestyle and dying at 75 is better? So even both of them, if they die at 75, but until reaching 75, the stress, the problems, the economic loss, all these things is less for the person who had active lifestyle and never developed diabetes, or always controlled diabetes by lifestyle modification. So this is always that. It's not just about length of the life also, it's about the how you live your life. Now a brief discussion about NCD in India. Again, these are pre-COVID figures, not during the COVID, applicable not COVID, but 53% of all deaths are due to NCD. So NCD now have crossed the 50% barrier. These are the most common killers or cause of deaths. So CVD is 24%, and it is a single highest killer of a person in India, as compared to malaria and TB, much less. Again, these are the figures. You can pause and read if you want. These are the prevalence of the risk factors among Indian males, females, and overall average. Okay, so smoking females is very low as compared to males, but physical inactivity is higher as compared to males. Okay. Again, here obesity is higher among females. Even overweight is higher among females. So these are the things. These are neglected. You can see the trends overall throughout the years, how there is increased in the systolic blood pressure and mean fasting blood glucose level. So these issues are increasing now. Now we'll consider national and international efforts done to control the NCDs. Global Action Plan by WHO. WHO plans to reduce 2% annual reduction in chronic disease deaths. Using current knowledge, they plan to reduce the deaths by more than 3.5 crores, that is nearly 3 crores 60 lakhs. For that, WHO has recommended integrated approach. So 4 priority non-communicable diseases: cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and chronic respiratory disease, all should have been integrated approach. What is the use of integrated approach? It will help to spread the message easily, and many of the risk factors are common, so we can prevent them. Then all these 4 will be, we can reduce all these 4. So what is the use of comprehensive integrated approach? Is stepwise planning or framework for planning. So first is WHO recommends to do the surveys, to do actual census and find out what is the extent of problem, and then you can study the problems, we can study the needs of the people, and then from that we can develop a plan. And every country has to develop their own plan depending on based on scientific knowledge and people's need. So second step should come as formulate and adopt a policy, and third step should be identify policy implementation. How one can formatting policy is not important. How you can implement that policy, that is has to be determined. Policy has to be implemented at national level and subnational level, maybe state level, district level, even village level. So for that, intervention should be depending on what are the current resources and what are the needs and how you can allocate those resources. Secondly, this should be acceptable to the people, and their impact should be a long-term impact. So all this thing has to be considered. Taking the cues from the WHO push, India has now panned out previous cancer control program into national program for prevention and control of cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease and stroke, NPCDCS. This is the logo of NPCDCS. This can come as a spotter. So what are the targets under NPCDCS? NPCDCS targets to reduce premature deaths from NCD by 25%, more than 80% coverage of required medicine and technology, 50% coverage of drug and counseling, 50% reduction in household air pollution, stop the increased rate of the diabetes and obesity. So it's not that we are targeting to reduce. Okay, we are targeting to reduce, but first basic target is to stop the increase. Then reduction in blood pressure by 25%, reduction in tobacco use by 30%, reduction in physical inactivity by 10%, reduction in salt intake by 30%, and reduction in alcohol intake by 10%. These are all the targets to be achieved under NPCDCS. Remember this tobacco, alcohol, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity and stress. These are the key areas which are targeted under NPCDCS. Now what is the strategies they are going to do? Health promotion, camp for screening, development of NCDs clinics, especially at CSC level, specialized clinics once a week or twice a week, where specialists will come and specifically they will manage NCDs, capacity building at all the levels, then providing a cost effective diagnostic and treatment at primary, tertiary and secondary level, and robust surveillance. Surveillance is very important. There should be feedback, what is happening, how many new cases are developing, how many cases could have been prevented. All this feedback can be affected only by surveillance, can be found only by good surveillance. Now what are the recent initiatives? New changes are being brought. Previously NPCDS did not have COPD and chronic kidney disease under it. So as the name suggests, cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease and strokes, COPD was neglected, but now COPD has been also included under NPCDS umbrella. Population based screening using frontline workers like ASHAs and Anganwadi workers for diabetes, hypertension, common care. So ASHAs, Anganwadi workers are trained to screen for diabetes, hypertension and common cancer. So this has been increased. Similarly, Ayush integration has been increased now. Practice of yoga has been incorporated for NPCDCS. Then rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease also are brought and considered under this umbrella of this program. And very important initiative is tuberculosis and diabetes collaboration is done. Diabetic people are very prone to develop tuberculosis. So both the versus screening for even for TB patient for diabetes and for diabetes patient for TB regularly, and managing this, the important focus is given under this program for this TB and diabetes initiative. Now last, already this session is quite long, so I won't go in detail, but I will just want to tell you nuances in case taking for non-communicable disease. Now remember this, you may think that basically I am assuming that you know basically how to take case in community medicine, and then from that we are going in the direction of what are the different things you have to consider. What is the difference while case taking for special things we have to consider for taking the case of NCDs. Now remember, so I won't go in detail on all the things, but before you start chief complaints, if the person is known case of diabetes or hypertension or any NCD for that matter, you have to specially mention before. So you are told all this name and all these things, so in what way you have to tell in single sentence and how you have to discuss, that I won't go. Or even if initially you have to take the date of examination and admission, all these things I won't go in detail. But now you are starting your chief complaint. So before that, if the person is known case of diabetes mellitus, so say for 15 minutes, so you have to say a known case of diabetes mellitus on medication since 15 years came with chief complaints. So you don't directly jump to chief complaints, because if you do that you will lose the importance of him being a known case of diabetes and hypertension. And this should be true for every disease for that matter, not just NCD cases. So you should not forget these cases. So your outlook of taking the case changes. Then you have to go on this chief complaints chronologically. Then you have to go for negative history, that I won't go in detail. Now from past history, many times what you do, you just take that patient is known case of diabetes for so years and you finish the past history. No, if the person is known case of non-communicable diseases, you have to take detailed past history. Agar it's the case that you are first time diagnosing him as a diabetic patient or first time diagnosing hypertension, then okay, you don't need go in detail of past history. But if the person is known case of diabetes for few years, known case of hypertension for few years, then you have to go in detail. How was the first time the disease diagnosed? May it be 10 years back, may it be 5 years back, or may it be few months back. How it was diagnosed, what were the symptoms, what happened then, where he went. Even if sometimes opportunistic screening is there, person has gone for fever and they have taken their blood pressure and they are diagnosed hypertensive after taking 3 multiple blood pressure. Then also mention that in opportunistic screening the person was diagnosed as hypertensive and confirmed later. So you can do that. So you have to write in which scenarios. Then after that, what treatment was given, इतने सालों से how is his regular follow up, if he, that person is doing regular follow up or not, have then there been in major changes in medication. जैसे कि person in diabetes person can be given initially oral hypoglycemic and then shifted to insulin and maybe again to oral hypoglycemic. So these shift should be done. Any major complications during all these years, whether the person was hospitalized or treated for complications, all these things, if the person needed rehabilitation, a person is amputee, say maybe diabetic amputee, so total rehabilitation hai usko Jaipur foot diya कि नहीं, any type of prosthetic is given or not, so all these thing has to become. So when the person is known case of non-communicable disease, the past history should be a detailed history, not just a fleeting mention. Now taking the family history for an NCD is always, if a female is there, don't just ask regarding her household, ask her about her parents, her siblings. Okay, you tend to forget that, that's why I'm just telling you. Then environmental history वगैरह, that is common. Again taking environmental history, you should see what are the stressors in his environment, what can cause the stress, or second-hand smoke, or any pollution, all these things. So these things should be given importance, just not tap water and sanitation. Then while taking the diet history, you should always see if the ask person if he is taking excess salt. So nobody will directly tell that he is taking excess salt, because everybody thinks that they are taking a sufficient of salt or sufficient of sweets. So you have to ask whether you are taking pickles, papads, whether you are taking using the shaker or taking additional salt. In India, if you have seen thali system everywhere, anywhere, there is a first thing they will put is salt in that thali. So the is that person is having that same habit or not. So you have to ask in detail these things. You have to ask these nuances. You are taking fried farsan or fried peanuts, all these things you have to ask. So you have to actively dig up for person consuming excess salt. Okay, and then you have to also ask for regarding fruits consumption, how many portions of fruits, vegetable, fibrous fruits that person consumes. So all these things you have to include. Then comes the anthropometry. You have to take height, weight, you have to calculate the BMI and waist to hip ratio. You will not forget waist to hip, taking waist to hip ratio. So what is the waist and what is the hip? Waist is from anteriorly you have to take the tape on umbilicus, laterally you have to take the tape on the lower edge of the ribs. So palpate, find out the lower, where is the lower edge of the ribs, keep your tape laterally there and anteriorly, just above the umbilicus, not on umbilicus, just above the umbilicus. The lower border of tape should be touching the umbilicus. So that is your waist. And what is the hip? Hip should be the widest area of the trunk. So ischial tuberosities and widest contour of the buttocks and anteriorly pubic symphysis. So these things come under the waist. So waist to hip ratio. Okay, just mind my drawing. So this is umbilicus, these are ribs, lower edge of the ribs. So your tape should be laterally touching the lower edge of the ribs and just above the umbilicus. This comes the waist. I have to write by mouse, so please mind my. These are the ischial tuberosities. This is the pubic symphysis. So you have to take tape laterally covering the ischial tuberosities, just touching or above the pubic symphysis, and posteriorly you have to see that you cover the or you see the what is the contour of the buttocks, and just posterior tape should be around the maximum contour. So this is how you should do it. Okay, again you have to calculate waste to heap ratio. So these things you have to take, and then your general examination, in that you have to consider what is that person's build, nourishment. You have to then take pulse, BP, all these things that I won't go into detail. That system examination, again I have told, every time you have to take at least one system in detail. So if the patient is of hypertension, if there is no other apparent system involved, then you have to take CVS in detail. If the patient is of diabetes, if there is no other system is involved specifically, then you have to take CVS as well as CNS to check whether there is loss of sensation or not. So you have to take in detail. Then there is a concept of, then all this then there is a investigations. So there is a buffet of investigations required for diabetes and hypertension. I won't tell you again or go in detail one by one, but you have to give all the important relevant investigations. You are not supposed to read the paper, you have to prescribe those investigations. So blood investigations like CBC, then lipid profile, BSL, LFT, RFT, all these have to become chest X-ray, then echo. Similarly, you have to go for ophthalmic examination. So there is a buffet. I won't go and enumerate everyone, but you have to give that patient even sorry to forget glycosylated hemoglobin. So all these things. So go through them all. You have to learn by heart what are the investigations for diabetes and hypertension, and you have to prescribe them all here. Then your diagnosis, management, I won't go in detail in that treatment part, but advice to the patient: check what are the issues in the patient, what are the modifiable risk factors present in the patient. Is he taking alcohol, is he consuming tobacco, is his diet unhealthy, is it lifestyle is unhealthy. So all this can, and advise accordingly. Advice उसी पे करना है. So अगर patient is underweight and ask him to exercise rigorously, this is very wrong way. So advise accordingly. You have to manage the patient. ऐसा सोचो कि मैनेज कर रहे हो पेशेंट. सो जो भी आपको मॉडिफाइड रिस्क फैक्टर दिखे हो तो कहीं पे लिख के रखो कि दीज आर द मॉडिफाइड रिस्क फैक्टर आई हैव सीन व्हाइल टेकिंग द केस, एंड देन इलैबोरेट ऑन दैट. सो इवन डाइट में मॉडिफाई करना है तो अगर पर्सन इज कंज्यूमिंग एक्सेस सैट, देन आस्क हिम टू रिड्यूस सैट. कैसे रिड्यूस कर सकता है वो भी बताना है आपको. तो आपको उसको बताना है कि यू हैव टू डू नॉट ईट पापड़, पिकल्स, और इन बिटवीन द टू, डू नॉट ईट इन सच जंक फूड इन बिटवीन द टू मील्स. सो ऐसे यू हैव टू टेलर मेक द एडवाइस. रिमेंबर दिस, यू जस्ट कांट रैंडमली थ्रो द वर्ड्स. एंड वेट लॉस करना है तो यू हैव टू कैलकुलेट द कैलोरी रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ द पेशेंट. इफ द पर्सन हैज टू रिड्यूस द वेट, देन you have to ask that person to consume 200 calories less. वो कैसे करेगा ये बताना है आपको. ऐसे नहीं बता सकते उसको कि यार आप कंज्यूम 1800 किलो कैलोरीज. इट वॉन्ट मीन एनीथिंग. उसका जो डाइट है उस पर आप 200 कैलोरीज कैसे कम कर सकते हैं, 300 कैलोरीज कैसे कम कर सकते हैं, ये हैव टू डिसाइड. सो इसमें से अरे स्किप द पीनट्स और स्किप द फ्राइड भजीज यू आर कंज्यूमिंग. सो you have to balance accordingly. Diet has to be tailored. And lastly, prevention you have to tell. And last is the national program, NPCDCS के बारे में आपको बताना है. Okay, so I think we'll stop here, and thank you for your attention.